Hello, everybody, and welcome to another conversation around why Black Lives Matter. Our conversation today is going to center around healing avoidance, and I think it's something that came up in our conversation last week closer to the end. So we believe that it's a good opportunity for us to just bring the focus back to that internal healing and the awareness that that has brought to us. And also, just to kind of have a conversation around how avoidance actually plays out in our lives, to bring awareness in that space and hopefully healing to everybody involved in this conversation and the people that join us and watch this conversation later. So we do have a sense that our healing is timeless. So please feel free to enjoy and also to share your feelings, thoughts, your experiences, and just insights with how you've handled or healed avoidance in your life. So one of the things that's come up for me in terms of healing avoidance was the energy of self-rejection. And what was profound about it was that we actually self-reject in order to avoid things in our lives. And we project that rejection onto other people, assuming that it's what they are doing to us. And often we kind of, in most instances, we have to just come back to the core of it and become present with what that's actually presenting to us. And for me, that was presenting something in myself, in that I would automatically assume that somebody wouldn't like an idea when I spoke up. And so certain things I didn't speak up about. And even in my life in corporates, it was also one of the energies of not always addressing the thing that needs to be addressed until it got to the point where there was no avoiding it any further because it was now out of hand. So it, like last week, was just for us a perfect opportunity to go into the space of, well, what is it that we're doing that's feeding the energy of avoidance, as opposed to looking directly at the core of it and healing the energy of avoidance. And by that way, basically overcoming the self-rejection. And one of the things that Molly also mentioned in our conversations this week was, sacrifice is also a form of avoidance. So I kind of want to hand it over to Molly and just get her take on where that is for her in terms of seeing the connection. And then we open it to everybody else and let's just have a free conversation.
Thanks. Yeah. I feel really good about this topic. It's something that I've had to work a lot on recently, and it's been a lot more. It's just been so much easier to face upsets when that there's really nothing scary there to find. That's what why we avoid is, like you said, there's this fear of the rejection, fear of you being evil. And that's why racism is still happening, is because there's this deep fear of evil in all sides. White people feeling like they're evil, they're responsible. They don't want to look at racism because of how atrocious slavery and racism was in the past. And this brought up a lot when Drake he was watching Antebellum, which is this new movie on Hulu with Janelle Monáe as the lead. And that brought up a lot of stuff, which I'm sure we could talk about more. But for me, I didn't realize this growing up until I visited some family members in Georgia, and we visited one of our ancestors' estates or plantations. And I found out that my ancestors had slaves. We went to the graveyard and there were graves for slaves. And that was horrifying to me and something I shut out. I didn't want to know that I had that in my history. I was just like, that sucks. But, you know, like, as I've like felt into it more, it's that those ancestors aren't me. Those actions they took, that's not me. And what I'm doing right now is I'm choosing to love. I'm choosing to heal this. And, you know, even though like those horrific things happened, it doesn't mean we can't heal from it. And it doesn't mean that like we're damned forever because of these things. And there's always an opportunity to heal. And even in the most horrific circumstances like slavery, like this is still healable. It's a deep, deep wound to heal, but it's still healable. And yeah, that movie Antebellum really brought up like, wow, this is like just reminded me of how horrific slavery was and how deep this goes. And like that's, I feel like the purpose of those movies is like to remind us like this was a really big deal and it was not too far off in the past, like 150 years ago or something, more than that, but that's still not a long time in like the existence of humanity. So, you know, it's that's what I'm getting from this topic is just like, you know, even though like we've made really crappy decisions in the past, it doesn't mean that we don't belong in heaven. And sometimes that's really tough to extend to people who've done really bad things. And you have to look at it through God's eyes, because God created His children. God made us, and we do make our own choices, and we've had to learn from really crappy choices that it feels bad to control and bad to abuse. But yeah, the only way we'll be able to heal that is by looking at it and by knowing we are innocent. We are divine. We are inherently innocent, and we must connect to that. We must recognize our divinity and our power to change and heal what's occurred and make a better future for ourselves and the other children of God. Yeah. Anyone else have thoughts on that? Just taking it in.
I do have some thoughts.
Go ahead.
Okay. Anyways, no, like watching the movie in the beginning, it was like really hard for me. Like I just was like getting really emotional, and I like that you brought up the fact that like, you know, like you feel like you're evil, because that's what I was feeling. I was like, how could I let this happen? Like, you know, even though it wasn't me, if I wasn't even in that time, it was just like I was like, I feel really bad, right? Like watching that, and so that really helps when you say like it's not me, I didn't choose that, like I'm choosing love. But I guess there's still like a pain point there though. Like I still feel really bad about it, and it's like I don't know, it's just very emotional, very emotional. So,
do you want to go into that?
Yeah, I'll go into that. I guess I just feel really like sad. Um, that like somebody could not choose love, that someone could like treat a human being like that, like a child of God, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it just feels like I just feel really bad.
Yeah, you need in this space.
Just that like God had them, you know, like it's not my job to save them. Like I couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I like can't travel back in time.
Mm-hmm.
And guess it's just like, yeah, just realizing that they still had God, even though
Yeah.
it's like a horrible thing that happened.
Yeah. Do you choose not to attach to the bad feeling?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. What else do you need in this space?
Just like, I'm not a bad person, I guess,
Yeah.
because I feel like the color of my skin makes me bad or something. I don't know, like, because I guess white people did that, so I feel like I just bad, but I know it's not true.
Is that true?
No.
Good. What is the truth?
That I'm a child of God and I'm not a bad person.
Yeah, what your ancestors did in the past doesn't define who you are right now.
Yeah.
What else do you need in this space?
Just that like we're healing this, like we're solving it. It's like the problem has been like physically solved, but we're still healing it, and it's gonna be healed. Like trust.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know, it's just like hard to wrap my mind around that somebody could like treat somebody that badly, I can't.
Yeah. What do you need in this space? It feels like there needs to be some forgiveness, maybe.
Yeah, just forgiving myself and forgiving like the people that like chose to do that and had like really bad actions, because they're still child of God.
Yeah. Do you choose to have compassion for these children of God?
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that feel?
It feels better, yeah.
Are you ready to go deeper here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just feel angry because I'm just like, why? Like, why did that happen?
Yeah. Are you meant to, your brain isn't really, you're not meant to know why because you don't resonate with it. It's not for you to know.
Right. Yeah.
Is it safe to let that go?
Yeah.
Good. What else is coming up here?
I just feel like anxious now.
Yeah, do you choose to release that? Bring love to that space. Good.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
I feel better.
Good. And do you feel peaceful here?
I feel like ungrounded. I just feel like a lot of energy. Not bad, but I just feel like, ooh.
Yeah. You want to take a moment to ground and we can check in with you in a little bit?
Yeah.
Cool. Good work.
Thank you.
I wanted to add like something that's really important here also is like taking responsibility for like our upsets. Cause like there's like a whole blame game that happens and like we can't really, it's important to not like dissociate from like that. Like that's the avoidance. Facing it and taking responsibility for how we feel and like, white people, we played a big part in this abuse, And it's important to recognize that that happened, but not shame ourselves or shame anyone, because that's not the way of healing. You know, and like, it's just important to recognize, like, this is what happened, you know, and come from that and know that, we can heal it.
Yeah, it's almost like this feeling like we're afraid of accepting the fact that we have, like, it happened. Like, if we accept it, that means that we were okay with it. But that's not the truth. We're just accepting reality so that we can move through it. Like, a lot of what they've always told us is like the only way that we can really move through the upset is just accepting where we are right now, and not having judgment on where we're at, and just allowing ourselves to move through that. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, and that, you know, the thing that comes up for me is a quote that I heard ages ago, was that the only way out is through. So avoidance of that thing is never going to set you free. It's literally that energy of, if you have something in your hand and you want to pick up something else, you kind of need to create the space to be able to pick it up. So you got to put something down. And, you know, when we make it that practical, it just becomes so clear that some things just actually need to be put down. And it's something that Jeff also shared with us in one of our Ascension classes with him, was just that you actually have to be able, you have to finalize certain things in order to be able to explore other things.
I love that. Imagine like a world without racism. That's cool. Like, we got to heal this before we can actually have that. We've been pretending like it's happening with like certain things, which is just it's continuing the problem, continuing slavery and abuse in some sort of way that's not fully healed. But yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
So how's everybody else feeling about this topic?
I want to say another part of avoidance is definitely welcome me to saying that racism doesn't exist anymore. I don't know if you have that in the United States, but like in France, because we're not allowed to like study groups around their ethnicity, and have like principles of the government that are like unity, like it's like almost like an erasement of race, and it kind of supports the narrative of racism is dead, you know. And for a long time, I believed it as well, because I didn't experience it like full on, like first, and because I was like with like mixed and black communities, but it's definitely not that. I think this is part of the avoidance, like saying that racism is dead because like we live in a modern world where slavery doesn't exist in Western cultures anymore, doesn't really solve the problem. And I think that's what I thought about when Marty said that we've been pretending. Like, we've been pretending that it was healed when it actually wasn't, because we didn't go through the uncomfortable conversation and healing that needed to happen. Not yet, I guess.
Totally. Yeah, that's like everywhere, that racism is dead kind of narrative. I feel like it is like feeling more like heard, like it's being talked about more I feel now lately in culture, but yeah, like what I've seen is from like people in this community, they like people from Portugal or like from like Denmark or like the Dutch area of Europe, they said they didn't learn about the slave trade or anything. And they were like the Dutch and the Portuguese were one of the most notorious slave traders. So they're just erasing that history completely, not going into the healing. And there's a stark contrast between that and where like Germany went with like where they really looked at themselves after like the Holocaust. They like really were like, okay, like this was really messed up. And they did a lot of healing. They like I know like they do a really good job of educating their citizens about what happened and make sure that's never going to happen again. So I think it's a like really cool that Germany was able to like really look at themselves and really like complete that healing. And I know like Shaleia said something about how Germany has a lot of good karma because they were able to look at that and like heal that. So yeah, it's possible for sure, but just gotta look at it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I feel like we could like learn a lot from that. A lot of European countries have as a core block avoidance. Like, for example, a lot of European countries have islands in the Atlantic and other parts of the world that are like European region, like where I grew up, for example. And there you learn about the slave trade because it's literally your history. But like people that grew up on the continent and mainland don't know, almost don't know anything about it. And it's their history too. And that's really sad. And yeah, that's like just one example of how we are avoiding ourselves and rejecting a part of ourselves and our history. Yeah, so definitely feel like it's like a system of thought healing.
And I like what both of you have brought up in terms of that seeing thing, because, you know, one of the conversations that I've always been part of is somebody says, I don't see color. And I'm like, well, you know, well, what do you see? Like, if you don't see color, does that mean you don't see that person at all? Because how do you strip that person of color of their color? Like, what are you actually looking at here? Like, we're not saying attach something to the color, but if you're saying you don't see the color, what do you actually see? And I think one of the clips that, and it's actually in the clip that Ray shared with us last week, when we started out this topic was, you know, when she said to her boss or the guy in the clip, I don't see color. And he's like, well, if you don't see color, then you don't see me. You don't see that I'm a black man. You don't see my pain as a black man. You don't see my person as a black man. So yeah, like my question is, what do you see? Maybe that's something that everybody needs to take a step back and ask themselves. If you're saying you don't see color, what are you actually seeing?
I guess, yeah, I feel like, yeah, that could explain a lot, like people not actually seeing outside of their reality and not extending compassion and empathy to people that are in a whole other reality, which involves like discrimination and not being treated equally. And right now in France, this is really painful because right now in France, like the government is launching a campaign to stop Black studies, like women's studies, gender studies, LGBTQ studies, to kind of infiltrate more the university, because we lack a lot of these studies in France, and often people want to do research about it, go to the United States or Germany. And so people of the government have actually said like that it was a danger to extremist danger to the principle of republic, and that it was communitarism, I guess. And like the sense of like communitarism is like a really bad word in French. Like it's like, oh, you're kind of grouping yourself together. This is like the light definition, and like the worst definition is like being together and being extremist to the point where it could be dangerous. So I think a lot of people see that recognizing color in France could be endangering their own sense of self, I guess. So yeah.
That feels like they're just scared of being taken from somehow when they can't be. It's so silly. Sounds similar to America.
Yeah. Yeah, like different story but same block.
So I actually want to ask Ray a question very directly, because I think part of the healing that Ray walked us through last week at the end of our call was also just to kind of go into that space, or go through that space where he was having that upset. And I kind of want to find out from Ray, on the other side of the coin, what does that feel like when you've actually kind of laid down that piece of thing that you were holding on to or not free to share about at that point?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that like the reason why like it was so hard for me to share was because I didn't want to come across racist, right? Like that's like I think the fear that that white people have, and I think that is the pattern of avoidance, which Marley talked about, which is this like, well, I don't want to come across evil, so I'm just going to avoid this feeling that I'm feeling because the feeling is evil, therefore it makes me evil, right? But as we know with unionism, you are not your feeling. Your feeling is just the thing that's coming up for you to release and to love and to bring a new alignment in that space, a new, thought form in that space. And so for me, like it was, I mean, it's always freeing to like release like a thought form that comes up and to just be able to speak your mind and to claim your power in that space and to not have concern so much around like how that makes you look, but just being open and willing to heal in that space where your thought form is maybe incorrect. And so, yeah, for me, like, if anyone didn't watch, last week I was really struggling with, well, I'm really confused because, I thought like, we've talked about like racism is like over, like what is it over? Is it not over? And like also there was talk about tokenism in the workplace and feeling like, well, are we only just hiring people just to get people into companies? Are people not being hired based off of merit? And then what happens to me in my job because I'm white and like they needed to get somebody who is of a color, right? And so it was already a thought form that, and I think like the thought form was that there would be any experience of lack. And so what I came to learn is like what you shared, Granville, in the beginning of like, well, there's a need to like accept yourself and love yourself in that place and to recognize like who's the source of your good, who's the source of you having that job, right? And we also talked about intention last week too, which really helped clear up a lot of things around what companies are doing having the intention of, not just like, let's just get, a bunch of, colored people into a workplace, but, let's change our perspectives of how we see people and actually give people of color the opportunities that they have not been given. And, also, one thing that came up too for me since this last week was seeing like success in my brother. Like, I think because I feel sometimes that like I'm not a part of it, of like the community, so like I can't somehow be like cheering it on, if that makes sense, or like really be part of it, if that makes sense. And so it was kind of like, well, no, like this goes deeper than just like Black lives. It's all that stand for Black lives, that can be a part of this movement. And so like the success of my brother, who is finally getting seen and getting the opportunities that he's always deserved, means that like nothing gets taken from me, because we're all one. Right. And that's my success too.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I like that you touched on the point of it's my success too, because oftentimes we get to the space of, well, what is this mirroring to me? And so I need to heal this thing. But then on the flip side, well, is the good not also something about me? The fact that I'm seeing it means it's mine as well, right?
Right.
And we kind of miss that point, that part, that like there's two parts to this coin. And there's two sides to this coin. And if there's the good that you're seeing, well, hey, you're not going to see the good if it doesn't exist in you in the first place.
Amen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I just like I'm grateful that we have this group, because the fact is that like what the Black community is doing right now, and the Black community is I believe the leaders of change in the beginning to unionism in all areas of our lives, is going to trickle down into all different things. Being someone who's trans and in the LGBTQ community, like I see how the things that we heal in this Black Lives Matter discussion and just in general, right, are trickling into like my life and the things that I do, right? And so like the healing for one is the healing for all. And I think that that's really what I've kind of taken away from kind of reflecting upon what we healed last week too.
Something that just came to mind. Oh, I'm just gonna share this real quick. Something that came to mind was like, I remember like the first like LGBTQ riots that happened, where like started with like these trans women of color. I forget the name of the riots, but like what was it?
Stonewall riots.
Yeah, the Stonewall riots. Like, that's really true. Like, the Black community, the people of color really inspired a lot of change. And yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I completely resonate with that. And one of the things I want to touch on, because Raymond made a comment about like being afraid to say something because you don't want to be seen as racist. And for me personally, especially on my twin flame journey, one of the things that I avoided like the plague was Black men. And it's because I grew up believing I couldn't trust them, that they all abandoned. I've talked about it before in these group sessions. And it felt really bad to like hold on to that belief, because I had never really given myself the opportunity to even like explore that, because I was avoiding it. I was avoiding that like there was truth behind what I was being told about African American men. And as I chose to really start to heal that, God had brought quite a few in my life so that I could just explore and connect and get to know them. And as I really did that, one of the things that came to me is that I learned a lot about myself. through those connections. And I was able to really accept a lot about myself, places that I was denying the fact that I was African American and that my skin was this color, and really accepting fully who I was. And as I did that and really healed around that, I actually was able to heal a lot of my upsets around the divine masculine. And so it's like really being aware of, if you're feeling this need to avoid something or not look at it, that's actually where the healing piece is. That's actually where you're being guided to go deep into and go all in and love that space. And as I've done that, my perception has completely shifted, of course. And it was just a part of me that I was holding on to. I was holding on to this lie for the longest time. And as soon as I let it go, just so much love came through in that space. And it's really just being able to understand that there's no reason to avoid, because you're really just going to learn more about yourself. You're going deeper in who you are as you choose to explore that space. And I'm grateful that I did, because it felt really bad to be like, I'm an African American woman. However, I do not like to interact with men of my color. And that felt bad. I was like, why do I feel this way? And I don't want to feel this way. I want to be able to accept everyone as they are and love them as they are, and not be afraid of them due to the lies that society has told me. A card that is here is responsibility. I love that. I had to take full responsibility of my upset. You are aware of the power of your thoughts and the amount of love that you express.
One thing I'm feeling deeper into is just like, you know, we see like, we feel like how, I don't know, we see that the Black community often feels powerless in a lot of situations, but like, you know, I'm just feeling into like how powerful it really is. Like, it's been powerful this whole time. It's influenced all of music ever in history. Black culture's everywhere. Everybody has hoodies, which has been popularized by Black culture. Like, you know, and that's just like one thing, but like there's so many things that like the Black community and people of color have influenced in this world through their culture. And that's one aspect. And with like social change, just, you know, I feel like, you know, we all have to give the Black community more credit for all the power they've claimed and they continue to claim. So, you know, it's something to recognize there.
Yeah, so I also feel like the piece that you're speaking to is that we need to give ourselves credit as the Black community. So you can't claim every fancy thing and not claim the powerful things too, because you're afraid of your power. So let's also just go back to that mirror and say, well, actually, as Mali's recognizing it, there's a piece that the Black community has to kind of go, well, actually, we are the ones that have not seen ourselves, or we're choosing not to see ourselves, or we're choosing to portray ourselves in certain ways that may not be fitting to who we really are. And that's kind of what I started off with in terms of just that energy of self-rejection that sits behind avoidance. Because when you actually start to claim yourself, you start to see all these things about yourself, as Kanisha said, that like you didn't pay attention to. And so because you didn't pay attention to it, you were not actually your complete self. And you didn't feel like your complete self. And so one of my pieces of healing in my coaching session with Kobe and Keely on Monday was when I started to realize how much energy I had poured into self-rejection, and the fact that I have claimed my acceptance in that space, like my whole chest area and my whole abdomen just opened up. And it was just this feeling of openness. And, you know, like when talking through it, Keely said to me, well, you know what, it's actually quite safe to claim your expansion from within. Like we talk about our peace and we talk about this wonderful space around us. And when we actually start to feel into the space where we can completely accept ourselves, we realize how expansive we are as an individual. And that really was something that kind of came home to me. Like I was playing small to make other people feel comfortable. But, you know, Keely pointed out to me that actually you playing small is arrogant because you're telling God that you know better than God how good you are. I was like, oops, okay. Like that's another level, right? It's like, wow. Like when that message sinks in, it's like, oh wow, let me sit back and just absorb that for a second.
Yeah, this reminds me of, sorry, this reminds me of Jeff's Ask Me Anything at the beginning of 2020. The thing that it channeled for me was that your culture is an asset, not a liability, unless you let it be. And so in regards to what we are discussing today, I realized that like Black culture is everywhere and in everything. It built the music of the 20th century and the 21st century as well. And so many more things that are, building the world right now. And yeah, I was kind of seeing it that as like theft of identity. And I was like, okay, you need to give credit to Black people for the things that we are seeing today in culture. And I was like, okay, but do I give credit to myself? And do I see that I am powerful? Do I see that my culture is cool? Do I see that I am cool and I am powerful and I am divine? And funny enough, Keely pointed that to me as well, like that I didn't see how fucking cool I was and how I needed to be confident about it. And it's just like, all in all, it's just one thing. Like, you need to give credit to yourself before you can expect like people to give credit to you. So it's pretty simple, and it's yeah, it's really claiming like your power from within.
Oh, let's just have a check-in. How are you guys feeling right now?
I love this conversation. It feels so good. And I just remembered something else I was going to say before, but I'll say it now. Like, you know, this reminded me of the Black Panther movie, and I looked up the box office of like every Marvel movie, and it's like the fourth or fifth highest box office out of all the Marvel movies. And that's behind the Avenger movies. Like all the Avenger movies were above that, but like Black Panther was at the top, showing like when you stop avoiding the beauty of this culture and you express it and show it like to the world and embrace it, like people want that really, really badly. And it just shows in the numbers. So yeah, it's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, I love that you said that. One of the things that you made a comment about was like, how we feel powerless, and that we're not like claiming our power here, and how we're not giving ourselves credit. And I personally have had to work through that too. I had a friend who was just like, I just don't see what you see. Like, you're such a powerful Black woman. Like, people listen to you. And I almost was like, they do? Like, it was just like kind of like thrown off. It was like because of the fact that I am Black, that I just assumed that they weren't going to listen to me. And she was like, no, like, you hold this power. Don't ever like question it. Like, people look up to you. And I had to really take that in and realize that like I was choosing to feel powerless or like a victim because of my skin tone, and I really get the choice to make a different powerful choice there. I can really see that in a sense, I don't know, I guess that what the word that's coming up is like I guess I always felt that like I intimidated people, so I felt the need to like dull my shine because I didn't want to intimidate them, or I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable around me. And that is, like you said, it's arrogant. It's not. I think that I know better than God, and that felt really bad. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because that was kind of just like a self-realization moment for me as well.
Yeah, I think what you kind of just mentioned was also, for me, it was quite profound to just kind of sit back and go, oh my God, what the hell have I been doing? Because, you know, like we think that there's humility in downplaying certain parts of ourselves, and it's exactly the opposite of it. It's exactly the opposite of humility to not accept the fullness of you.
Yeah, God really wants the fullness of everyone. That's why Black Panther was so did so well. Like, people want that authenticity and that newness and uniqueness. Like, it's so, I was really getting annoyed with my film class I'm taking recently, like I'm taking right now. My professor kept on showing us movies about white men, and I was like, what's going on here? And it's so boring. It's so boring. Like, it was literally like the same plot line, just like different circumstances, like the whole time. Like, and we all want to see like newness and diversity and creativity. Like, that's what being alive is. Like, that's life, that's God. We want more God. And when we're like sticking to the template of what society is trying to say is the template, it just is so boring. And I told that to my professor, like, hey, like, when are we gonna see some diversity in these movies? And he's in the next film, he was like, here's the next film dedicated to Marley. So yeah, you gotta speak up about
Yeah, I was gonna say, where to speak up, and like you're like, here, these are my needs. Like, I'm paying for this class, and I need what I need from this class.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important, like, for people to speak up about this, so others can know why, if this is even happening. Like, that's why the Black community has been so powerful. They're like, hey, this shit's really not okay. Like, let's figure it out. And I would not be able to like talk about this if it weren't for the Black community speaking up and sharing their voice and claiming their power. And then I shared my knowledge with my film class, which is mostly white men. So, you know, it's waves, it's dominoes. Like, it's so important to share that authenticity.
Something else I actually wanted to share around like why I think Black Panther was so meaningful and why people were so attracted to it is because that's the way Black culture is truly, right? Like, Black Panther spoke about strong, amazing, black men and women working together with white people, having no issues, having no problems, like whatever, right? This like very unified world. And that's like how everyone wants to perceive the world, right? And I think what's happening right now, like I'm just constantly shown videos and movies and things my whole entire life that portray Black people not as the truth of what they are, or white people and Black people not having the relationships of the truth of what they are. And so like that movie really spoke to the truth of what the world is meant to look like. And I think that's why there was so much love of that movie, and why you see a lot of movies that portray strong Black men and women characters as such attractive ones, because it's the truth. And so I think that's ultimately
why Bridgerton did so well too on Netflix. One of the most watched
Exactly.
shows on Netflix.
Exactly.
Like it's really, you're right. It's completely, it's what the world desires. And as soon
Yes.
as we accept where we are and not deny it or avoid it, and it comes back to what Drake said too. Was like he was talking about how because of what happened in the past, he was holding on to it as if it was still his energy, as if he did it. And same with Black people. It's like, oh, that is our past. Let's just hold on to it because this is what we know, instead of really claiming our truth and our power and our divinity and why we are truly here. That is to love. That is to bring love to this world.
Amen. Amen.
A situation at work today reminded me that a lot of people see like women and men of color in art and representations and movies as criminals or the help, or this kind of like low caste of society. And I think at the core, people know that it is just not true, and that it feels uncomfortable, and that is why a powerful demonstration of culture like Black Panther is so appreciated, right? By all, by all like strats of society, not just like Black people, because this is a relief to see a divine representation of society, and knowing at the core that it is our truth, like as humanity, not just the truth of Black people.
Amen. No one wants to be lied to anymore. That's what it is. And I think we've seen this through like every discussion we've had around politics too, like around media and Hollywood. Like no one wants the lie anymore. People are choosing the truth. People are choosing the divine. People are choosing love. People are choosing peace. And like that's why I would hope, and I think that's why that's all we see now is all of this change, all of this stuff happening, all of these conversations happening. And yeah, like I just I gotta believe that like Black Panther ain't gonna be the only Black Panther, right? Like there's gotta be more. And I think this is just the beginning of that. Like I certainly hope so, because I enjoyed being able to get to know Black culture from a place of unity than from a place of like, oh, that's something that I'm just watching from a distance, or some strange foreign thing, which is kind of what is portrayed in some of the older mediums that I watched as a kid growing up.
Yeah, I wish I could remember her name, but she's a gymnast for UCLA. She just did her amazing 4 routine that had all Black artists in her music, and she killed it. And she had a lot of Black celebrities and artists like reach out, and they're like, this is so great that like she chose to show that's her authentic self, because gymnasts, like they usually have like this, I wouldn't say like classy, but they have like their structure of what they can do on the floor. Like I've seen so many gymnasts for routines that they almost look the same. And what this woman brought to the floor, it was almost like, holy, like, wait, what? Like, what just happened here? Like, you just like saw gymnastics from a totally different point of view. And like, you got people excited about it because she brought the Black culture to the floor. She was her authentic self, and she just brought her passion. And it's like, it's one of the most viewed videos right now. It's trending because like people are like, wow, what she did here was like amazing. And all she did was put together Black routines and like different dance moves, but made it her own. And like people are like, I want more of that. I desire to see more of that, especially in a space where you had like I said, it all kind of looked the same until she decided to bring something new to the floor, literally. And so I thought that was really awesome. That's really true. What we're calling in is that harmony. That's actually our next card, is harmony. It says that you are able to feel a loving, balanced connection with everything, and really claiming that change, claiming that space to really be your true authentic self and express yourself as you truly desire and how you were created to, and not holding yourself back in that way. And that really gives people, other people, permission to do the same, to show up in that space as their true authentic self. And so I love that you said that.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that you shared that as well, because like I immediately in my mind it was like, well, typical Black culture, because like Black culture to me has like from just my own education of it, right? Because like in the past my education was, you know, really nothing. And like as I've come to like learn more, really respected the fact that like Black culture is like innovators. Like if you were to like name the Black culture as like a person, like they're an innovator, right? Because like we think about, where did rock music come from? Well, that came from like the like bluegrass, and like all these jazz, right? All these things that like Black culture brought together through music. You look at sports and like what Black culture has brought to sports, and just so many different things that like you can see that having like the meaning behind having the Black culture as part of it that has progressed it or changed it. And so it kind of reminds me of what we were talking about before, where we're saying like, well, you know, Black culture, like Black people are like the leaders of change. Like that makes a lot of sense to me because of all the things that has like kind of been developed from Black culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so I think we've had quite a powerful conversation that actually centered nothing on the outside for a change. I think we did get a little bit looped into looking a lot on the outside, and I'm happy that we just kind of brought the focus back to where we were at as a group in this space, having this conversation, sharing this healing. I think we need to just, as a thing to be cognizant of going forward, is to do a little bit more of that. I think that's what actually allowed this conversation to expand for this extension of time, you know. So yeah, I think we've had quite a powerful conversation today, and we are at our hour. So I'm gonna just thank everybody for their participation, and I'm gonna thank everybody who's followed us in this conversation up until this point. Please feel free to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel. You're going to find all our previous conversations around why Black Lives Matter, sharing the healing. We know that the healing is timeless, so please feel free to watch any of the episodes and just find your little gem in there, because there's always a gem. And yeah, we will see you all next week. Thank you, everybody.